Auntie Lee's Meat Pies. This is not the first movie to use this kind of premise of people capturing and killing human beings and then processing them into some sort of food product.
Bless us, O Lord of darkness, and bless these thy gifts, which we are about to receive through thy bounty. Sow thy evil seed throughout the firmament and reap the black wind.
It's in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Motel Hell, Blood Diner. Throw Soylent Green in there. Just kidding. You mix Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Petticoat Junction, because what you have is these young, attractive women who are part of this family unit, and they live with their Auntie Lee, and she's running the show. And the show is these girls go out, and in most cases, they entice young men to put themselves into a precarious position, and then they murder them. And then they, process their carcasses and turn them into meat pies. And apparently it's delicious. So they're selling them to local vendors. So that's the deal there.
You're very sweet, Mr. Pasquale.
So the cast of this thing, you have Karen Black, who has been in at least 10,000 movies. She's been around a while. She worked with Francis Ford Coppola. She was in The Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper in '69. So she's from that era. But for horror fans, she's been in all kinds of stuff.
I've been waiting for you, Ben.
Go forward a few decades and you have her in what is to some considered a cult classic in 2003, House of a Thousand Corpses. She plays Mother Firefly in that, and she's one of the Firefly gang, and she looks a little scary in that one. Same thing here. She's got a look going on that's a little different, a little terrifying. And her performance is, for lack of a better word, unhinged.
I just made some nice, fresh meat pies. And you're welcome to as much of them as your little heart desires.
But that's sort of what she's known for. So anyway, you move on from there. You have Michael Berryman, who a lot of horror fans know primarily from Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes. Pretty memorable performance in that, and he's been doing the horror conventions for years. But he's also in one of my favorite scenes in a non-horror movie. He plays one of the killer mutants that attacked the house party at the end of Weird Science.
Okay. This is war. Hands off the girls. Let's leave the girls out of this. Hands off. I said hands off! Now!
Why don't you shut up, bitch?
Peace.
Get out of here.
Beg your pardon. You have a lovely home.
Can we keep this between us? I'd hate to lose my teaching job.
Great scene. And then you have someone who never really got his full due in Hollywood, Pat Morita. A lot of 80s kids know him as Mr. Miyagi from, I think he was in 4 of the Karate Kid movies, including the one with Hilary Swank. But, you know, he also played Arnold on Happy Days.
Where, Bob? You kissing my pinball machine?
Which at the time, not that common to have an Asian actor in a fairly visible role on an American sitcom. So that is part of his legacy. But then you have a bunch of Playboy playmates and adult stars. We can go down that list. So you have these actresses that many of them would go on to do Playboy or adult type films or somewhere in between. The 90s erotic thrillers that kind of made up 50% of Cinemax's programming for a while. And so you have people like Christine Rose and Ava Fabian, who I think dated John Lovitz for a while. Terry Weigel, she's been in a bunch of stuff. Pia Reyes. This film was directed by a guy named Joseph F. Robertson, who died about 10 years after this movie came out. He had had several careers already in his life. He was in the Marines during World War II, but then he got into show business because he was doing accounting for George Burns. And part of his legacy as well is he made a lot of adult films under the name Adele Robbins. But his only 2 horror films that he was responsible for directing were this, and then a few years before this, a version of Dr. Caligari. That was his legacy to the horror movie lexicon. This movie was filmed in a couple of places around California. Primarily, they shot up near Santa Clarita at a ranch in an area called the Newhall, and then they moved the production down to Fullerton, which I think is just a little bit north of Anaheim, where, Disneyland is. And another classic, we'll call it a classic, shot in Fullerton back in the mid-'80s was a comedy that was trying to kind of capture the spark that had made Police Academy successful. And it was called Moving Violations, about a group of people, all walks of life, being sent to traffic school. And it starred another horror starlet that I think is really embraced by the fandom over the years, Jennifer Tilly from Bride of Chucky and subsequent Chucky TV properties and movies. This is one of her first roles, Moving Violations.
Did you see Friday the 13th?
No, I didn't.
What about the 13th, 2, 3, or 4? What about 5?
Missed them all.
It's too bad. They were great. A lot of bloody, gory stuff. Hey, did you like it more when Clint Eastwood got stuck holding the severed arm in Tightrope, or when they cut those guys' arms off in Scarface?
Well, let's see. Oh, there's my bus. Gotta go.
Nice talking to you.
Good thing she didn't get typecast. She played a rocket scientist. So the plot of this movie carries on, and it really kind of goes nowhere. There's sort of a subplot where a guy is a private investigator and he's looking for one of the victims who gets decapitated fairly early in the movie. There's a weird sequence at the beginning with a man who is not a fan of consensual activities, let's say. He gets killed, and you have Michael Berryman, who's kind of the simpleton helper character. And for a couple of scenes, he's really mad and upset about this entire, he's upset about this tire. I don't know why.
Always get me in trouble with Auntie and the girls.
I mean, the tire is like a big focus of his character arc in a few scenes.
You've caused enough trouble. I'm not fooling around anymore. You hear me? I'm talking to you, mister!
So that's a little out there, but then the girls end up running into this weirdo band of guys. Their car breaks down or something, and a bunch of dimwits, of course, and the girls lure them back to the house. And then it pretty much becomes a series of set pieces with these girls murdering off these dudes. And then concurrently, Pat Morita, who is the sheriff, is figuring this all out. He has a few scenes with Michael Berryman's character, and he starts to figure it out. And the big clue that he runs into, and I don't want to diminish his abilities as a law enforcement professional, but what really tips him off is he finds a trash bag full of dismembered human body parts in Michael Berryman's car. And so he thinks, wait a minute, something's going on here. But that doesn't really pan out too much. And then the movie just sort of ends. It cost reportedly about $1.5 million to make this movie. And coincidentally, that's enough money to feed a small African village for about 1.5 years. But then we wouldn't have this film. So I think they made the right choice.